Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is about the third World Championship game between Ding Liren, the world champion, and his challenger Gukesh. So once again, this particular stream on my channel, it's all about using the amazing website live.leela.lc0.org to view the games and get all the lovely Leela insights about the win, draw, loss probability of each move, which move is supposed to be the best, etc. So that's what we're going to be doing for the next 2.5 hours. I've only got 2.5 hours today, unfortunately. So I'm a bit worried that I'm going to miss some exciting stuff afterwards, but well, there's plenty of other streamers, I guess, that can keep you happy as well. Though no one who's going to talk about Leela all the time. But yeah, so really looking forward to it. I did some commentary for the main live chess stream with Laura and Felix yesterday, and it was great fun. It was really good fun, and yeah, it was one of those games that obviously ended up pretty dull. but actually there was a huge amount of content, and yeah, I think that somehow that Ding had some very good preparation, but somehow it wasn't quite in his head enough about how he was actually going to make something of it. It's with the engine giving hints and all that. You can work it out quite nicely, but just to look at it, at the board there, easy to feel that there's not much in the position, and essentially that's what Ding felt, and they sort of manoeuvred their way to a draw by repetition. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that says. I think what it says to me a little bit about Ding. I think he's in good tactical form, but I'm not sure he's necessarily in his best sort of grinding form somehow, and so I'd sort of expect, to be honest, that he's going to be. Yeah, my feeling is for the match is that he's setting up to be really solid as white and to be counter punching as black, and that yeah, I think Gukesh is going to have to watch out that he doesn't keep on over pressing with white, and that just allowing Ding to counter punch like that. Looking at this, I'm not sure that the Gukesh is really going to have many problems with black. I think Gukesh is going to be too solid for that. But I do think he's going to have some problems maybe with sort of over pressing with white. And of course, being a pawn down, there's the danger is definitely there somehow. So yeah, that's right, Loose Horse. I was on the mainstream. I'll be maybe on Saturday as well. I'll be on the main live chess stream as well. But yeah, it's nice to nice to switch a little bit. But I did try and mention Leela as much as possible yesterday, but obviously this is rather more intensive. So there's 3 minutes to go. Gukesh has white, Ding has black. Going to be very interesting to see the opening. Will Gukesh keep up with e4? I guess he will. And will Ding play the French again? I guess he won't. I guess that he's going to do something different. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping really that that Ding sort of keeps playing, sort of keeping life in the position. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a similar sort of approach that you need, to the approach that that Magnus had against Fabiano Caruana in 2018, I think it was. That Magnus was playing the Sveshnikov against Fabiano, and in some ways you sort of thought, Fabiano's a really dangerous attacking player. Why are you giving him a quite a sharp Sicilian somehow? But I think that Magnus felt that in that sharpness, that ability that Fabiano has to really play aggressively and go for things, there was also a big chance of him overpressing and making mistakes. But here we are, we've got it, and we have switched to d4. So what is Ding going to come up with? D4, very interesting. Ding's got a whole range of very solid lines with black. So let me just share my screen. That's probably a good idea, isn't it? So that we can all follow it together, not just me looking at it. And let's have a look. LC0. There we are. allow. That's great. We're on there. Knight f6. No surprise there. So some people are probably hoping for a London system. Knight f3 from Gukesh, stopping the Budapest, of course. That's very important. Shall I maybe just zoom it in a little bit more? 110 there. That's probably a bit nicer, isn't it? I think for the stream there. Whoa, 3c3, the Mark Hebden approach. My goodness me. So oh, a clunky way to move pieces on the board. No correctness check. Oh, okay. Well, I'll have a little look at that, Alexander. Thanks very, very much. Yeah, that's an oof. It's the T-shirt is there's an engine called Stoofvlees, and it's Dutch for well, Flemish. The author is Flemish, but it's that's was it meat stew? But people developed the little saying of it was incredibly amazing engine, lots of creativity in there, but it was also liable to make terrible mistakes. So it was what they came up with. They came up with the idea of it's an oof whenever Stoofvlees, Stoofvlees made a mistake. So so I got a T-shirt made with "It's an oof." So and I used it for one game that I analysed of Stoofvlees on this channel. So yeah, no, that's right. Oh, it was C4. Ah, C4. Oh, what a shame! What a shame. C4. There we are. Best commentary, no ads. Indeed, no ads on this channel. I hope if I'm doing it right. It's yeah. I put ads on my normal videos just to because I think you get a better well works better for the algorithm for the videos. So at the beginning of the videos, there's always one, but never anything in the middle and yeah, you know. Try and for the live streams, yeah, no, none at all. Hopefully, if I'm doing it right. So now this is very interesting from Ding. What's he going to do? Is he going to go for? I mean, I guess that I am guessing that after if e6, then Gukesh will go for a Catalan because that seems to be normally more or less what you can do if you want to play for a bit of a win at least with White in these lines. I mean. Let's give this a go, shall we? E6. I'm not sure. E6. Can we do that? Not sure. E6. Ooh, not sure that's working very well. I think we'll just refresh. Oh my goodness, I've lost. Oh no, I haven't lost a pawn. Some moves have been played. So E6, C takes D5, E takes D5, Knight C3. That's quite interesting. That's very, very interesting. This C takes D5. Actually, it's really funny, right? Because Keith Arkle, so English Grandmaster, always plays this very early C takes D5, E takes D5, in order to get to his favorite Carlsbad pawn structure. This is the Carlsbad pawn structure. If Black plays C6, you've got these 5 pawns and 2 on the queen side, and then 4 on the queen side and 3 on the king side. And he likes playing that structure. And he's been playing C takes D5, E takes D5 earlier and earlier, sometimes even as move 3 after D4, D5, C4, E6. And what is the value of this? The value of this is the following. I'll just show you on this board. That if you go Knight C3, then Black plays C5, semi-Tarrasch. And if takes, you can take with a knight and you know, sacrifice an awful lot. What you can also do is play the move C takes D4, and loads of theory on this, but basically just equal. So by taking on D5 really, really early, indeed taking opening lessons from Keith Arkle, so takes Knight C3, you're avoiding all that stuff, basically. You know, that's absolutely perfect. So yeah, pretty cool, pretty good idea there. So what have we got on here? I seem to be having some problems with the old refresh. So Ding has played c6, and white has played queen c2 to stop bishop f5. Now, yeah, interesting. I'm wondering actually. There is a crazy Leela idea in this that I looked at. I'm not sure I did a video on this specifically, but the idea was well, you can stop bishop f5, and you're going to play. Actually, it's what Leela is wanting already. Actually, that you play queen c2, and you're going to play h3 and g4. So if g6, you're going to play h3, and you can follow up with g4. And even normal Leela is finding this interesting. So I do wonder, actually, how much, which engines in particular are used for generating ideas. I would think that Leela would be incredibly useful for that. And I suspect, actually, that Ding's idea of a5 on move 9 in that Italian game was actually a Leela idea. Leela was really, really keen on all of that when when it was played. So I do suspect that that's the case. But yeah, what's the most? What can Black do in these positions? Well, Leela's saying 96% probability that g6 to support bishop f5 is the best. That's pretty common, really. Now, yeah, I mean, in principle, bringing the bishop out to f5, in principle, Black is happier to exchange off light squared bishops because he's got all his pawns on the light square in the center. Keith Arkle, who plays this structure an awful lot with White, he tends to argue, or he tends to be happy swapping off the light squared bishops. The point is, all of his play, it's based on moving these pawns up to the queen side and weakening this pawn chain. And then if you haven't got your light squared bishop, you haven't got a bishop that can defend this pawn chain. So if you manage to weaken it, for example, swap off a b pawn for the c pawn, then there's a lot less to defend it. It's the famous saying of Mihai Suba that bad bishops defend good pawns. So so he's always claiming that that's good. But in principle, I think that the general feeling in general terms is that exchange of light squared bishops is something positive for Black. But yeah, what are we looking at with Leela? For example, and I've seen, I've actually played this in some of my Blitz games as well. So where I've been trying out some Leela ideas. So h3, bishop f5, queen b3, queen b6, and now g4. And yeah, you're just trying to be a bit challenging there. So I mean, if you take on b3, I take back with a pawn, and this is always a little bit double-edged somehow. You get the a file for the rook. That's pretty decent. But the queenside pawns are a bit damaged. But yeah, in principle, it's not bad. Of course, if you go the bishop to e4, that's possible. Oh, Gukesh has gone h3. If you put the bishop on e4, then well, White eventually can exchange it and get the advantage of the bishop pair, right? And if the bishop goes back, you've just gained space for free. So I mean, this is, yeah, very, very interesting. So Gukesh has actually played the Leela idea, which is h3. I'm pretty convinced, to be honest, that this is Leela inspired analysis. As I said, I've seen it. I've even played some Blitz games with this. I didn't do a video on it because it wasn't one of the complete bananas lines, which I always think people prefer a little bit to see. But this was actually quite reasonably effective. I've only got 6 games in my database actually with this line. Hayark's database is it saying that White scored 100% with this? Maybe. So, yeah, so it could be quite interesting. Let me just have a quick look in ChessBase just to see what the stuff is all about. Let me see. Copy game. Great. What does ChessBase say? Oh, so we've got some titled Tuesdays, I guess, or some Blitz games. We've got Vladi Kramnik playing it a couple of times against Jan Nepomniachtchi and Erigaisi, actually. That's interesting. At the Levitov event. So a couple of games there, but not actually particularly successful, I have to say. We've got a Yu Yangyi playing against Alexei Shirov in the FIDE Grand Swiss. That's quite interesting. Playing H3 as well. And we've got a couple of title Tuesdays. So there's been a few good players have tried this, but mainly in blitz games. And to be honest, not with great results. Actually, looking at it there, I may be misreading the stats in high arcs, but I'm actually seeing 4 losses for White and 4 draws out of 8 games in chess base. But well, I mean, I think. Obviously, there's it's it's not. I don't think that's definitive. So yeah, I mean, Bishop F5, I think is more or less the only reasonable move that you would make here. I don't think I don't think there's anything else that you'd particularly do. I mean, Bishop F5. The nice thing about this line is that it's not forcing, right? I mean, it's not super forcing, but it is steering in the sense that, really after Queen C2, G6 is the most natural move. After H3, Bishop F5, Queen B3. So Gukesh can be pretty sure that his opponent is most likely going to go, into somewhere where he can do some pretty deep preparation somehow, and that's really that's quite nice somehow, And I think this is very much more his sort of game somehow. It's just toned down the sharpness a little bit. Ding isn't going to be able to really unbalance this very much. And Gukesh's strength of just being able to play pretty much any position really, and good stamina, going for a long game, not really giving Ding any big tactical chances. I think this is a good bit of prep. I think this is going to suit him a lot more. So not bad at all. Interesting choice for Ding here. I mean, Queen B6 is the only move, more or less, that you should really consider as a grandmaster, really. But okay. I mean, you're going to swap off the queens, so it's already a certain type of game, and you can be pretty sure that Gukesh is very much prepared for this one. Yeah, Ding probably a little less somehow. So will be interesting. I mean, I was a little bit disappointed with Ding yesterday in his preparation because I mean he played this move on move 14 B3, which was unbelievably subtle. But somehow it didn't really feel like he had very much in his head somehow about what the ideas were and what the subtleties were behind the move somehow. I was a little bit disappointed about that because I think it was a very subtle move and a really, could have really done an awful lot with it somehow. But it looked more like something that they had in their line and they just sort of said, okay, well, that'll be all right then. But I'll work it out at the board. But yeah, it would have been great if he could have prepared that just a little bit more. So it's going to be interesting to see what Gukesh has prepared here because this endgame will be quite interesting. After Queen B6, I would expect Leela's move here, which is G4. That seems the most challenging somehow. I mean, H3 can be useful in terms of putting a bishop on F4. And you can't. It can stay on the diagonal even if it gets chased away. But I really think the idea of H3, and Gukesh has done it immediately, is to go G4. So now it's an interesting little moment here. But you can see that Leela's pretty positive about it, right? 27% against 13% winning chances. That must be about 0.3 or something in centipawn's term. So that's quite interesting. But a little bit of a decision now for Gukesh. So this is quite a nice one. You've got to decide. Am I going to take queens or not? Most likely, you can just decide to leave that. But that's not 100% clear because it does depend a little bit on where you want to put your bishop. So, for example, if you put your bishop back to e6, if you think, well, I'm just going to claim that you've weakened your king side, and I'm going to move the bishop there. I don't want to move it to e4 because then I might lose the bishop pair. Then white does have the possibility of just putting the queen back to c2, and okay, you've lost the tempo, but the queen isn't amazing on b6, and you'll also have possibilities of, at some stage playing knight a4 to hit it coming into c5. That's not bad, right? I mean, likelihood is this queen will need to move again, unless you find some incredible counterplay with something like c5 there that you can sort of break things open, but that doesn't look very likely. Yeah, I mean, if you play bishop e4, then it probably doesn't matter, whether you take the queens immediately or not. White's not going to take there because this is a very nice pawn structure for black. Open a file and an extra b pawn to use as a battering ram. So if you're going to play bishop e4, you probably don't need to take the queens. But if you're thinking about playing bishop e6, then you've got to think about whether queen c2 will be played immediately. I mean, after bishop e6. Leela's just looking at playing bishop g2, but earlier in its main line, its PV as we call it, principal variation. Then bishop f4 was on there, so it's and then queen c2 afterwards. I mean, so not very clear somehow. What would I want to play as black? I'm just trying to think. H5, yeah, queen c2 h5. We'll have a look at that. There might be some interesting lines in that, I think. What would be my preference as black? I think intuitively I'd be looking to play bishop e6 rather than bishop e4. I think certainly if I've been being caught out a little bit, I think bishop e4, I'd feel that I'm giving away the bishop pair and I'm giving the opponent something quite clear. I'd sort of feel that a little bit murkier with bishop e6 would be better. And then, yeah, I mean, the question is queen c2, and then people are saying maybe h5 in this position, which is not, yeah, certainly not a silly move at all. It could get quite sharp though, and just bear with me. I'm just making this up as we go along. But I mean, white does have a number of very interesting lines here. I mean, first of all, one line that's maybe interesting is to go knight g5 in this position. The idea obviously is to take like this and queen g6, which is obviously really, really good. So, I mean, what are you going to do? I think you're probably going to go back to d7. Of course, the d4 pawn is hanging, but you wouldn't allow that. But then the question is, do you have anything interesting as white? I mean, something like e4 maybe? Not so stupid, right? We're into crazy Leela territory here, but here I go bishop e3, and this could be pretty dangerous, right? Queen e5, I've got f4. If you go d takes e4, I'm going bishop c4 and hitting f7. Yeah, h takes g4. Well, maybe I can just throw in e5. I don't know where this knight is going somehow. I mean, I could have a quick e6 afterwards. If you go, I don't know, knight h7, e6. This could be pretty interesting somehow. Yeah? It's only one line as well. I mean, I could also, after bishop d7, I could play bishop f4, I think, as well. I'm looking for bishop e5, and if queen d4, I'm just thinking e3. Maybe queen b4, bishop e5, something like this. Yeah, if you prepared it right, I mean, this can be very dangerous. I mean, bishop d3 as well, very quick, looking for bishop g6. That looks vaguely scary, I have to say. There are other moves, right? I mean, there's knight e5 as well, with a similar idea of knight takes g6. I don't quite know whether this one would work, because with the queen on d4, you're defending f7, so that would probably not work. Queen d4. Could I do something? Exciting there? F4, not really. But knight g5 looks quite decent. I was also wondering simply about a move like, yeah, rook g1 simply, and just claiming that after a knight takes g4, then I'm going to play something like e4 or something like knight g5. I don't know, e4, something like that. I don't know. I could imagine that there are some gambit lines in there against that. That's So, well, I mean, it's going to be challenging, right, Tim? I mean, this is I think that the most important thing for Ding really is to settle on some sort of approach. That's very, very important. And yeah, the approach. What am I doing? Am I willing to keep the queens on, or am I going to go for the queens off? And I'm I think that that Gukesh would have expected this. He would have revised these lines early this morning, so it's going to be in his head. So yeah, Ding has got to decide what he's prepared to do. I mean, I haven't mentioned it, but there is the other idea of bishop c2 in this position. Always a possibility going after this pawn. Now, normally doing it at this early stage, White has some sort of tactics to catch the bishop on the way back somehow. But I'm not quite sure what they are specifically in this position. It wouldn't be knight d2. I can promise you that. But it might be something like bishop g5. And then maybe rook c1, and then knight d2, something like this, and you're going to catch the bishop on the way back. Hey, TI, good to see you. Taking notes. Fantastic. Good to see you. So yeah, I mean, bishop c4, then we could, play this as some sort of gambit. And yeah, I mean, you never know, right? b5, d5. You couldn't have prepared this, really, really deeply, and that could be quite unpleasant. So I wouldn't expect Ding to go take some bishop c2. I mean, unless you know it, my normal assumption would be, oh, it's probably been prepared. I'm not gonna go for that one. But yeah, I mean, you might go takes and bishop e6, for example. That could be a possibility if you're particularly keen to play this sort of thing. Just have a quick look at what is Leela suggesting here. Bishop e4, bishop g2. Actually, Leela does not want to take on b3, actually. I'll have a look later to see what it is. But Leela's just going for something quite solid like this. But I think Gukesh would be happy with this, right? I mean, you've just got the bishop pair. You can play around a bit. Yeah, I mean, this is for a world championship match. This is quite nice somehow. Probably not amazing amounts, but not bad. I'm just intrigued as to what Leela thinks after knight b3. So Leela's thinking about knight b3, bishop e6, which is what I mentioned, and that's quite nice. I mean, you give White a weakness, you keep the bishop pair, and you put the onus on White and say, find me a plan. And I was sort of, I'm not quite sure, right? I mean, if you're thinking classically, and that's a very old man, I am a classical player, then bishop d2, the famous Janowski Capablanca game where Capablanca had as black had his bishop outside the pawn chain and brought it back to play b4, might be something quite typical, looking to somehow get in b4 to b5. That could be quite interesting. Not quite sure how you'll make that work, but that's definitely the first thing you think about from a human perspective. What Leela is saying is bishop f4, which is quite nice. And then, yeah, Leela's looking for some action somehow, right? With knight e4. So Leela's not very happy about just playing quietly. I mean, I suppose the point is, if you go knight d7, I could play knight g5 and catch a bishop like that. I mean, all sorts of ways to catch that bishop pair. So Leela's looking for some real active play here. But this is not human, right? This is not at all anything that any human player would. Oh, look at that king would play. And to be honest, the result looks very nice for White to me. I don't know what Leela's. Well, it's not Leela's favorite move. Queen takes b3, but I think that's sort of. I'm just interpreting that as saying that there's quite a lot of interesting plans there somehow. So classic GM, that's right, classic mode. You've got all these young things on other channels, but this is GM classic mode indeed. So after g4, bishop e6, queen c2, someone is suggesting knight a6. That's quite interesting to play. But this plan of knight b4 is usually it's in combination with a follow-up bishop f5 later. So it's not as dangerous as all that. I mean, you might just be able to just play bishop f4 or bishop g5 and just sidestep, or the most normal move. Exactly, Leela knows that exactly. Hi, Mr. Beads. I think this is real Leela prep, by the way. I've played this with White and Blitz based on crazy Leela's suggestions. So I think this is crazy Leela prep, I think. So, yeah, knight a6. The normal way that you deal with this is to play a3, and yeah, the knight is not really that great somehow on a6. You've got to watch out, because you play the knight to c7 or something, you get knight a4, right? And all of a sudden, I think your queen's getting very close to being trapped here. So I think I suspect that Ding is going to take on b3 quite quickly. I do suspect that, because I think there will be a feeling of my queen's not doing much on b6, so if I don't take it, White will move it away, and then I'll have to move my queen again. I think just from a hey, Moronocracy, good to see you. Long time no here. It's Moronocracy, a stalwart used to be of the TCEC chat. So yes, yeah, a lot of TCC chatters here, and they're missing important chat commands. Yes, no, indeed. I'm glad you don't have any of those. So yeah. So I mean, what else could Black do? I mean, something like probably something like knight bd7. Yeah, knight bd7. I mean, would be sort of natural. You try and keep your things in reserve somehow. But I think White can just play a move like bishop f4, to be honest. And if h5, I think this idea of knight g5 is still really strong. Here e3. So I don't think. Yeah. Yeah, then you go e3. I mean, h3 g4 at this moment, it grand slap. Yeah, for people who don't know, there's a command in the TCC Twitch chat which Mr. Beads made, which was grand slap. So whenever they wanted to hit me, they just did grand slap, and then there was just some command that slapped me with a big fish. So yeah, I mean, there's a very famous game. I mean, it looks odd to go h3 g4 so quickly, but there's a very famous game from Murano 1981, Korchnoi against Karpov. You can't miss it, really. It's the World Championship match, basically the only game that Korchnoi won, I think, but it was a gorgeous one. But where Korchnoi ended up in some QGD structure like this, but he played h3 g4, and Karpov just didn't get free somehow, and you're basically in there. If Black just develops normally, bishop e7, e3, castles, bishop d3, White plays king f1 to g2. You're in this very normal, well-known now Queen's Gambit decline structure, and White is just better, simply. So yeah, Mike really understood g4. Actually, it is fascinating to see that all I don't know whether a lot of you have been following the Ding has taken on b3. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. That doesn't surprise me. Whoa, he's gone bishop c2. Wow, wowsy. That is surprising. I am shocked. Yeah. Maybe Ding is trying to really make things as concrete as possible there. Wow. Yeah, I hadn't expected that at all. But yeah, I think we've got we're seeing Ding's match plan here. I mean, with Black, he's not going to sit back and give Gukesh any sort of easy ride. He's got if there's tactics, he's going to go for them, I think. Because that's a very principled decision, because you could you could just end up a lot worse. You could end up wasting a lot of time if you're not sure. So very, very interesting indeed. So oh yeah, I was just finishing off with the all the odds chess that I've been putting on my channel. But you're getting such a Basmaniac feeling from Leela, because Leela's really worked out that all these G4s, actually even slightly even crazier than Basman, but with just as pawn sacrifices, just give away the G pawn, open the G file. These are amazing ways to unbalance the position, and of course that's what Leela's trying to do in odds chess. And it's really quite striking to see how often Leela's doing that, and some of the positions that Leela's reaching are really looking just straight out of a Basman game. So, I mean, I think Mike kind of overdid it, I guess, for the normal starting position, but as a concept, that this is the way that you can unbalance positions, it was absolutely 100% right. So now this is interesting. Is Gukesh really thinking at the moment? He is thinking a little bit. I'd expect him to be whacking out his next move, but yeah, I mean, what could White do here? Well, Leela's actually, it's quite interesting, I have to say. Leela's saying that the Bishop G2 is possible, and also Bishop F4 as well. Bishop F4 was pretty much what I was saying, and that's the most natural move. So the idea being that you're going to try and play Rook C1, and then you're going to try and catch the bishop with knight d2 after. So what is Leela suggesting? Well, Leela is going all out on the concrete, and yeah, you start to wonder, well, maybe Ding is going to do this as well, right? So what Leela wants to do, Leela wants to make a fight of that area straight away. No hanging around, no waiting around. This knight's coming into e4, and the bishop will come into b4 later as well. What you do have to watch out, just have to point out, is that bishop takes b8 is a possibility at times. Rook b8, rook a7. I mean, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. The fact that you've doubled these b pawns really means that yeah, black winning a pawn, white winning a pawn at the cost of the two bishops is not really anything special somehow. But yeah, just worth mentioning as something. But knight e4 from Leela, and then let's have a look at the line. Bishop g2. I'm not quite sure why not bishop b4 in this position, because that looks incredibly natural to me. Although I think White's probably going to castle anyway, maybe. But Leela's looking at knight d7, castles, bishop b4, knight a2, and then bishop d6, just exchanging knight d2. And this bishop is caught, right? Because bishop e4, we've got f3. So then g5 from Leela, knight c3, and then very interesting, right? Because oh, you can see those arrows. Isn't this good? It's really, really, really nice. I love these the arrow work that the Leela team has done. There was a great one that I put on Twitter yesterday where Ethereal was playing against Stockfish, and Ethereal had this plan: knight d2, b3, a5, c6, and Leela just put all the arrows out, showing that plan. Was really nice. Wow, Ding, you monster! He is playing fast. It looks. Maybe he's still in his preparation. Maybe both guys are still in their preparation. Jesus. H5 played by Ding, and then yeah, straight away Rook G1 from Leela, from Gukesh. So yeah, that's pretty natural, right? I mean, you wouldn't really want to play G5 and give up those give up control of the F5 square unless you've really got something concrete. I'm not saying it won't happen later, because it might do, but Rook G1 feels like the right move. Keep control of the F5 square, keep that bishop under pressure. But I mean, in fact, Leela doesn't like it that much, right? I mean, just 9.1 winning chances for black, 27.1 for white. So Leela's kind of feeling this. But yeah, I mean, white's idea now is to play knight d2 and trap this bishop, and then you're threatening rook c1. So yeah, I mean, black needs to do something here now, and what Leela is showing, again, pretty much what we saw. is h takes g4, knight d2, and then this move rook g8. What's the idea? To play g5 to free the bishop. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is getting quite complex, right? I mean, you get rid of the bishop, and then Leela's saying something like bishop e4 here. When White's going to get the bishop pair somehow. And I mean, I look at this position and I just sort of think, oh, I'm actually quite happy with White. I've got some light. Oops, sorry. I've got some light square weaknesses on here. Oh, that's quite nice. I can do this. Some light square weaknesses on here. I've got a move like e2 to e4 as well. It's okay. The engines will hold this with black, but I've also got rook h1 coming in. I mean, I would be, if I was preparing this, I wouldn't be happy somehow. But I'm guessing that Ding must have this prepared actually. So because I mean, you would not be playing these moves quickly somehow if you didn't know this. Well, at least I couldn't. Although, must be said, Ding's on 127, isn't he? Is that really right? That's really correct. Okay, so maybe he has actually been taking some time, sort of long time about queen takes b3, but he's played the rest of his moves very quickly. Ah, okay. They're following a game between Kramnik and Arjun. Okay. I mean, I don't know, of course, but I imagine that Gukesh is getting some help from the other young Indian players as well. So maybe that would have been part of the preparation to look at games by all these guys. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, at some stage with this preparation, I'm never quite sure somehow because there is a limitation to how much you can look at and how much you can remember. And yeah. You can look at all of the games of all of the young Indian players, but that's a massive amount of stuff to look at, right? So, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to yeah. I do wonder how they how a player sorts out his memory for what he has to know and what he has to what he has to remember and what he has to look at somehow. I mean, I'm sure the seconds can look at everything, but yeah. Although I don't have the feeling that rapport is that kind of second somehow, which is maybe something very positive, right? I get the feeling that rapport's just somebody who's got a lot of ideas, so he's always got an idea in positions for something, and then he's more about oh, we could do this, how about it, and then getting his player to feel like feel like oh, I could play this somehow. I get this is much more the approach rather than the classical second. I mean, I don't know who else is in Ding Liren's team. I would have thought again that he would be getting quite some help from the range of very strong Chinese players that are available. But I do have the feeling that in terms of rapport, he's very much more an inspirational kind of getting your player to enjoy what he's playing kind of guy. So. And then I said I don't know quite how Ding Liren has approached this. Has he tried to look, to learn everything, or is he just trying more to enjoy the experience a bit more and just be in the moment for the game? Probably a bit more of a mixture, but I would have thought that it's going to be a bit more being in the game and a bit less preparation. Whereas I'd have thought that for Gukesh being, young and keen somehow, that he's a bit more towards the preparation and a bit less about just being in the game somehow. Yeah, actually, it's true. Yeah, knight bd7 is Diaprola said a big difference there. I'll just put the board down a little bit just to show you that. But there is a big difference between knight bd7 and knight e4, bishop e7. So, big difference in terms of winning chances. So knight bd7 basically, keeps black on the in the drawing percentage. After knight e4, then it's really looking towards white, and bishop e7 as well. Yeah, I mean, bishop e7, that's easy to explain somehow, yeah, because we're catching the bishop, basically. We're going rook c1. Leela doesn't trust bishop e4. I think after bishop e4, we'd go knight g5 and then have f3. So then we catch the bishop, and then we're doing our we're doing our stuff. And it looks like Leela doesn't want to play b5. I'm not 100% sure why. Maybe d5 or maybe even b3. It might be possible, but or bishop g2 actually. You know, with knight takes b5 to follow. So yeah, obviously if you're not going to protect this pawn, then it's not going to be good for you. So so that's quite crucial. I mean, really, Black does need to do some serious thinking about getting that bishop on c2 free. Knight e4 was the other one that was possible. And interestingly enough, after knight takes e4, then Leela wants to play d takes e4. Doesn't fancy bishop takes e4. I guess that knight d2 and f3 is again going to be rather worrying for Black. But yeah, actually, this is a slightly worrying moment. Slightly, yeah, it might be due to low nodes indeed. Yeah. B5 knight takes b5. You're right, Sean. Absolutely right. Yeah. There might be it might be low nodes, although yeah, 240,000. That's a fair amount, right? I mean, at 10 nodes, Leela is my strength, so 240,000. You can imagine what sort of strength is behind that analysis somehow. So yeah, I mean, basically, you're now slightly worried about Ding, because this is actually quite a crucial moment, right? You've now got to really work out, how am I going to free my bishop? And probably you would have preferred to have prepared this idea of knight d7 and rook g8. Because the chances for this to go badly wrong are quite high. I will also point out that there's an idea here of for White to play the move bishop e5, right? And if you're not careful, and pin the rook and then go g5, that's also quite possible. I mean, if I was a human player, well, I am a human player, but if I was a human player playing this line, what would I expect as Black? I would actually be a little bit worried in this position, I have to say, as Black. One Leela node, yeah. Well, I was, I played a match against Leela, which I sort of wrote about in Silicon Road to Chess Improvement. At one node, I made 78%, and that was back in 2020. I'm not at all sure that I would make 78% nowadays. I don't know what they think Leela at one node is nowadays. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm a bit weaker than I was, and Leela's probably much stronger. So that would be interesting to do. I mean, I might well try and do this again sometime. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what the result would be there. It's not impossible that I would lose somehow. So yeah, what would I be thinking of with Black here? Well, I would simply be the main thing I'd be focusing on, more than any specific move, would be how am I going to deal with the threat of knight d2 and rook c1, and then bishop e4 f3. How on earth am I going to do this? And yeah, I mean, would I see the idea of playing rook g8 and g5? I think I probably would see it, but more in actual fact as yeah, no, people keep on saying I should do. I'm also going to do some odds chess as well. So I've got a little bit of holiday coming up, so just have a bit of a rest, and then afterwards, try and do it. I'm not very confident about odds chess, but we'll see how that goes. I think I probably would see the idea of playing g5, but it would be more a little bit desperate somehow, and thinking, oh, I think I need to do that somehow. And then maybe as I analyze a bit more, I'd sort of have a feeling, oh, maybe it's okay, maybe it's not too bad, maybe it's logical, maybe it's good. I do think, to be honest, that I would be thinking more about playing the move knight e4 in this position. So let's have a look. I mean, actually, knight e4. Yeah, I mean, What would I think of after knight e4? Well, rook c1 would be one idea I would think of. Knight e4 would probably not be the first move I'd think of, but let's have a look at it anyway. Knight e4, that's the move that Leela wanted. And then a Nexus 6 rather than a human. Yes, indeed. Good movie, Blade Runner. One of those movies where I even like the remake, in actual fact, or remake, the sequel. It felt like a remake somehow in a way, but Blade Runner 2050, I think it was. I really liked it somehow. Very dark and all that, but really nice. So what are we going to do? We just want to get the knight out of the way and then play f3. I mean, the most logical move really is to play knight d2, I think, and threaten knight e4. So the question is, how is black going to get free here? I mean, the logical move is to play bishop b4 here, because then at least you get to play bishop c2 takes b3. So at f3, I can play bishop c2, and I can follow up with bishop takes b3 later. Yeah, how are we going to do this with white? I mean, I could play a move like king f2 simply, and if you're going to do something like this, play a move like e4 and just claim I've got some compensation. Yeah, indeed, Tim. It's that's not completely stupid. What actually is quite tempting is just to go rook c1 and stop bishop c2. And now black's really got to do something with that bishop, because yeah, there's real danger somehow. I mean, actually, I think you're probably in trouble here, because the big problem is that, if you go something like rook g8 now, I go f3 and then g5, white's got this move bishop b8, moving away with tempo, which I think is kind of explains why Leela is keen on playing the move knight bd7, because when you do eventually get in a g5 with black, there's no bishop takes b8 tactic moving the bishop away. But okay, now I go knight d2. I mean, I could, in all fairness, just play the move rook c1 here. Bishop b3 and knight d2, which doesn't look stupid. I mean, takes, I take, and now, yeah, I mean, I could play the move e3, or I could play the move e4. The nice thing about having played knight bd7 is that black has this tactic, has this way to defend c6 now. So you're looking sort of okay there. And I mean, yeah, d5, I could just go knight takes d5, so there wouldn't be any tactic there. I mean, I'm vaguely wondering about playing e4, b5, and then something like, I don't know, g5 or something. Knight h5, bishop e3. I mean, I don't know how this is, to be honest. I just know that Leela, playing on odds, or even crazy Leela, would be very happy with this type of position, and I'm not at all sure what the situation is. Maybe what you would say in black's advantage here is that you can play maybe a quick knight g7 and play the knight round to e6, which is a good square. From that point of view, you might say rook h1 is a better move, bishop g7, bishop e3, and then you've sort of got stop the knight from moving out there. I don't know, but I could imagine. I mean, again, it's the sort of thing where you say, if I prepare this properly, then that could be really that could be quite nasty for black there. I mean, the other move that you might think about is knight a6 to go knight b4. That is a possibility. That's when actually a move like bishop e5 starts getting worrying. For the moment it's okay. I mean, you can deal with it somehow, but yeah, I don't know actually. Even yeah, having a knight on here and a knight on. I mean, you've got ideas like playing e4, right, and opening up the line on here. So. None of it's impossible somehow. So yeah, this is a bit of a difficult one, this really. I mean, if you find I mean, Ding's thinking now, and the move that Leela wants is rook g8. I don't think there's any particular other way of achieving this g5, to be honest. I mean, other moves that occur to you as a human player are, maybe c5, break open the center, but you've got knight b5, you've got g5s, followed by knight takes d5. You can't do this sort of stuff, right? But this move rook g8 is quite, I mean, it's really unnatural, right? Because you've opened the h file for yourself and now you're getting off. I mean, you really want, to be honest, it makes you really wonder about why on earth am I playing h5, you know, why am I playing h5, you know, and then playing hg if I'm going to play rook g8? It doesn't feel very logical somehow, but okay, you know, you might have to do it. But yeah, okay, Leela wanted bishop e3 and now g5. And then rook c1 afterwards. And then the big question is, you know, well, bishop g6, of course, there's bishop g5, right? So that's quite annoying. I'm playing bishop e4 is not natural to me. Bishop h7 would maybe be a possible. But I mean, you've got to start looking at moves like knight f3 now, to be honest, followed by knight takes g5. And actually, I'm wondering how on earth do I cover that that g5 pawn? Maybe I don't. So maybe then this move bishop e4. Yeah, but this is getting really. The idea of bishop e4, by the way, is that after f3, bishop h7, you can't play the knight to f3 anymore. But yeah, this is getting subtle, right? I mean, this is getting. That's true. Yeah, I mean, it's true, danger mouse. But still. Yeah. I mean, you know, even this, right? Even this position, you might say, you know, Leela might say after f3, black's fine. This is totally playable, right? For a white, for white. I mean, you play bishop f2, you may be looking for e4 or something, e4, e5. I mean, these pieces are all a little bit dodgy somehow, right? So yeah, I mean, in principle, I'm liking this. The only thing you would say is that if Ding finds something like this and we end up in this sort of position, yeah, I mean, I think Ding's all right with it. It's not a dull endgame position where there's nothing happening. There's going to be some tactics in there, and I think, you know, I think that the Ding's would prefer an ending with some tactics in it rather than a dry endgame. But that's why, you know, this move that we could get some knight takes e4 in this position from Leela. Where are we? Knight e4 and then knight e4 f3 takes. You know, this just looks like a rather dry position, you know, that that it would not be pleasant to play. By the way, this is very impressive from Leela. The way to try and do it, Leela pushing this rook's pawn, trying to activate its rook here. Obviously, that's a passive piece. Rook on g8 is tied to the defense of the g pawn for now. So Leela trying to get some activity there. That's really good stuff. Actually, it's very interesting line here, right? E4, knight b6, bishop d3, king d7, but this is tricky, right? I mean, this is a very difficult endgame, a very unusual endgame to play. I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't particularly know what's happening in there. If you told me it was much worse for black, I'd probably believe you as well. Hey, Geek9. So yeah, Ding is thinking already for 17 minutes, and that is a tad worrying. It makes me think that that bishop c2 and h5 has been played a bit more on general instinct somehow, particularly h5, which is played so quickly. I mean, the point was with after bishop f4 is that the really natural move to play for black is knight e4. That's the really natural one. I think that's the one that you know, that would probably stick in your mind first as a human player, just to start fighting against the queen side and try and get this guy free. H5 just feels a little bit, you know, ooh, and it's hard. It's not easy to work out whether this is good or not. And somehow, yeah, it's kind of harder to. I mean, what's just to say, you know, what's the big difference between, you know, playing knight e4 in this position and playing knight e4 in this position? The point is, after knight e4 in this position, if white takes, you take with the bishop and you pin the knight to the rook, so you can't go knight d2. Whereas in here, Leela's happy to take on here because after bishop e4, we're going knight d2 and we're already ready to play f3. So actually, this move h5 has slowed black down enormously in terms of getting rid of his bishop on c2, or getting his bishop on c2 free. Yeah, I'm not sure, Geek Nine. I'm a little bit worried about Ding because he's gone for a very sharp line and whacked out a couple of moves, which are not necessarily bad, though not the best. And now he's having another long think, and what he has to do is, for me, far from obvious. Obviously, Ding is several levels better than me, but still, I'm probably a decent guide of what's obvious or not, for a reasonably strong player, and it's not at all obvious to me that he would have to play this way. So yeah, it'll certainly need some working out, some thinking. I'm a little bit worried about him, but I think that Gukesh is going to be super happy, right? 1 hour 56 on the clock. He's still very much in his prep, I think, and yeah, Ding having to find some unpleasant things somehow. So yeah, definitely going to be very, very happy here. Just have a look a little bit further down. What sort of other moves do we have? Oh yeah, knight a6 I mentioned as a sort of maybe that's a reasonable human idea here. But Leela going for some quite... Ooh, yes, Leela going for some nice stuff here. So Leela going for king d2. I think that the big problem is that... yeah, let me show you. I've got to show you on the board, actually. This is very clever. So after knight a6, king d2, you might think, oh, I'd like to go knight b4 somehow, and just get my knight in there, and I'll try and solidify it, and I can take on b3 later. But then white goes bishop e5, and we've got a few problems here. If bishop e7, we go g5. And if you go bishop g7, well, we're going to have ideas like bishop d6. I mean, bishop d6, bishop d6, bishop f8, I just take, right? Take and there. So I can force the bishop onto g7, and then I go bishop d6, and actually you're losing this knight. Because you can't go a5, because I go bishop b4, and there's this pin on the a file. So that's very unpleasant. So actually after king d2, we go bishop b3, and then Leela starts... doing all sorts of nasty stuff. So bishop e5, hitting the knight on f6. You can't go bishop e7 again because I've got g5. So you've got to go over to g7. And then I go rook a3 because the bishop's no longer covering, right? Because I force it over to g7. So bishop c4, then, I can go b3 and I can do this sort of stuff. And well, you're starting to suffer a little bit here. Well, actually, Leela's going to do it a bit better. G5, knight h5, b3, takes, and e3. Yeah, and we're threatening this one. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't point like that. Threatening this one, and we can also... Oh yeah, then Leela's pinning the knight to the rook, so you can't unravel. You can't castle queenside because the a7 pawn is hanging. So you play a6, and then I go bishop g2, and well, I think we know what's going to happen. If you're playing Leela at any rate, you're going to get just horribly ground here. Just weaknesses all over the place, and pieces just split somehow. So, well, knight e1, there'd be bishop takes b3. That was the idea, g9, but that might also be quite decent for white. But this plan is very nice anyway, just to drag the bishop away so that you can get rook a3 in. That's quite nice. So knight a6 is definitely what you want. Not surprising, right? I mean, it feels it doesn't feel like the move you'd really want to play here. Any other moves that interest me really? Bishop b4 would definitely be a move that you might consider. Bishop b4. Just to fight there. So Leela's looking at knight d2. We're again looking at rook c1, and then knight e4 from oh god, that's nice, from Leela. And then after, Leela wants knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, and castles. What a nice way. And then we're just threatening f3 again, if we want, or we're just threatening. Actually, why on earth is Leela not wanting after knight d7? Why not f3 in this position? Is Leela thinking g5? Or maybe Leela thinks this is even stronger, actually. Just force black to defend with f5. and then break open the center. Maybe Leela thinks this is even stronger. But I'm pretty sure that f3 in this position would force black to play g5 and win a pawn. I can't think what else black would be doing, to be honest. But yeah, no. So I mean, all these moves, right? I mean, it's really it's really unpleasant, right? I think there's only this very narrow path to a draw, I think, or to some sort of relative balance somehow. And I don't, yeah, I don't find it very easy to find somehow. I mean, there is the line that Leela's pointing out, which I sort of didn't look at because it's kind of difficult, right? After knight d2, Leela is playing. Got to try and understand why. The move e3. So why wouldn't you just play the move bishop b4? Because that looks quite interesting, right? D takes c4. I go knight d2, so I'm threatening rook c1. And now I play bishop b4. And I've got the threat of, if rook c1, then I go bishop to b3. It's an interesting point, actually, whether I can play rook g3 in this position. Another advantage of having of black having played h takes g4, because I'm covering, and I'm now threatening rook c1. I mean, how do you get out of that, actually? I think you don't. I think this is just winning, actually. Oh my goodness, that's it, isn't it? That's why. E3 is played, so if bishop takes c3, we go bishop b4, and you don't have this rook g3. So you can just play bishop takes b3 here. Wow. Yeah, I mean, these tactics, they're just incredible, really. Yeah, no low nodes PV. I don't think so. I mean, I think the nodes that this is such a powerful setup with 4 NVIDIA 4090s running. I mean, even 250,000 nodes is still 3600 strength. It's just as I said, 10 nodes in 2020. 10 nodes was parity with me, and I was close to 2700. Around that time, I think, when I was in practice. So yeah. So after e3, Leela wants to play f takes e3, and now bishop b4. And basically, Leela wants to claim the center there. So bishop b4, bishop g2, knight d7, e4, king f2, and just claim that yeah, okay, this is quite nice. I've got the center here, bishop f3. But okay, maybe black's fine here, sort of. Yeah, not clear somehow. I mean, I've got these ideas where I'm bringing the knight into e4 and the bishop on g5. There's definitely some potential for getting this rather for being rather yeah, for getting into trouble, because white's got e4 as well at some stage if you try and establish something on d5. So yeah, this would not be an easy endgame to play for black, but yeah. But again, the calculation involved is quite substantial, right? No, I wouldn't have seen e3, I think. Or yeah, I don't know. I mean, those sort of moves, they would only occur to me as part of desperation. I'd never. I think that's one of the things that you do have to make the difference between humans and engines. A lot of these things that humans can find, they would be because of desperation, where you sort of say, well, the only thing I can see is to do that, but that won't be good, will it? And then maybe you analyze a bit more and you say, oh, maybe it's okay, but I couldn't, well, I mean, to be honest, it's at some stage when you're in 27 minutes that's when you start thinking about these sort of desperate ideas somehow, but not in an atmosphere of calm and pleasure, put it that way, but in an atmosphere of worry. This is getting a bit tricky for Ding, but it must be said that in the first game as well, felt he had a bit of a ropey position and a long think. He actually, navigated his way through to something very deep, that well, it certainly escaped me in terms of how good it was somehow, So it's Yeah, I mean, it is completely it is completely possible somehow, that he finds something, but I don't know really, it's I'm not sure. So bishop takes b3 was played by this was Erigasi, I think, against Kramnik. But then knight d2 was played, bishop c4, takes, and e3. Yeah, very nasty. And if b5, then we've got knight takes b5. Yeah. So basically, pretty much what we were looking at. So yeah, I mean, bishop takes b3 was played by Erigasi, but it was not very successful, I think. So yeah, you need to find something better. But yeah, I mean, two of the natural moves basically are looking really, really unpleasant, basically. So um, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one of those moments. It's very hard. Time handling in modern chess is quite difficult, really, because so Gukesh is playing very fast. I don't know whether Ding realizes that he's following a game of a compatriot of Gukesh's. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Um, but yeah, you've maybe got the feeling, that I should be okay here. I think that I should be okay in this position. But I've got to find it right, and but all that you're finding are things that just don't look very appealing. You know, the question is, how much time do you spend, right? Do you keep on fighting, trying harder and harder to find something that works? Or at some stage, do you cut it out and say, okay, well, I'm just going to accept a worse endgame? Um, but I think it's vaguely acceptable, so that's what I'm going to do. And that could be a thing like, for example, bishop e7, rook c1, takes, e3. They play this move rook h4, but it doesn't hold you back forever. And you just say, okay, well, this is the end game that I'm going to play. I mean, white's a bit better in this position, but okay, maybe I can actually hold this somehow. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the big decisions. The only problem is if you've spent all this time, 30 minutes, and then afterwards you just play some nondescript move, and then you still got to hold the endgame after. That is a recipe for disaster. It's why I made the golden rule for myself that if I spend more than 20 minutes, I am going to play the sharpest line that I found, the one that I analyzed the most, even if I'm not sure that it works. That is what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to just spend all that time and then wimp out and just be exhausted, and have less time for the rest of the game. I will say one thing though, that spending a lot of time on a game, it's not always easy for the opponent. I remember I played an English player, very strong player actually, not a professional at all, but became a GM just as a student really, Stuart Haslinger, and he was always thinking a very long time, huge time trouble addict, but his things were very long, but actually normally pretty good. And he was always finding very, very difficult concrete lines, and I often had the quite a difficult time with him somehow, because I was getting a little bit confused myself about, well, how quickly should I play in return? But if I played a little too quickly, then his very concrete lines were coming to the fore, and you're sort of in danger of saying, well, if we get to if he goes much further, he's just going to have a position that he can hold whatever. He doesn't need much time for it at all. It's very very, very tricky to deal with that. I mean, what I managed to do, I remember in one game at Harlem against him, was he thought for a very long time, found these incredibly complicated things, calculated it better than me, but I was starting from a slightly better position, so I managed to get to some sort of rook ending, and there, because he didn't have enough time, and also because I don't think that the endgame was really his thing somehow, he started to make mistakes, and I eventually won. But yeah, it wasn't easy, playing against somebody spending that much time. And I always had the feeling when I was professional, I was always getting quite short of time. I had the feeling that some people found it quite difficult. Oh, Ding has gone knight bd7. So this is really Well, in principle, this is good. This is how you need to do it. But it'd be interesting to see now what Gukesh plays. Knight d2 is by far the most crucial. The other possibility is to go rook c1 and play this sort of line, but this is a little bit better for black. I mean, you can actually play b5 here to hold the pawn. So what Leela is saying is rook h4 first, bishop e2, bishop b4, going for the pin. Obviously, you're attacking g4, can't take on c4 yet. King f1, and now Leela's going b5. Presumably feels that the inclusion of these moves has kind of helped White, but it's a very sharp endgame, right? And actually, I think if you look at the winning chances, you can see that Leela says, "Oh, this is more winning chances for White, also more winning chances for Black, less drawish," and that is absolutely correct, right? Because this sort of endgame that Leela's looking at is pretty wild, you know. It could go pretty much anywhere, this one. So that's very, very interesting. So yeah, this is going to be interesting now to see what Gukesh plays. What sort of how deep is his preparation, and what sort of position is he going to look to play? I mean, knight d2 is the safe one, kind of, and then black has to find this move rook g8, which is quite difficult, and the resulting position is quite pleasant. Rook c1 is the really sharp one, where you're saying I'm really going for unbalance, and black's going to have to prove it somehow. Oh, versus 1b3, I have a pet line. Ooh. Oh, somebody's after a simple system to play against 1b3. 1e5, 2d6 is quite simple. That's not bad at all. So yeah, very intriguing now from Gukesh. Also, is whether is he going to spend a long? I mean, I would have thought that he's not going to spend a long time here. I mean, either even if you're in preparation, then you shouldn't, and if you're not in preparation, then you should have been able to work out, that what you're going to play against this line. I think it would be the one line that. The one line that the black might well play, should be your main line somehow. So I wouldn't expect, but it might be that Gukesh is away from the board actually. Who knows? And then not able to respond immediately, or maybe he just needs to get back into it a little bit, just take a little bit of time just to settle back into the game after having to wait for Ding for a very long time. 33 minutes think there. But I mean, bearing in mind how little time Gukesh had in that complicated game last time, I think he really should be, trying to play as much as possible, as quickly as much as possible. What I always did for, in these sort of situations, even if I had a problem, even if I had some preparation and all that, I was always forcing myself to spend a couple of minutes just to make sure I didn't run away with myself and start making moves and suddenly think, oh no, I didn't want to do that one, just to settle myself somehow. But I'd say that now is long enough, and Gukesh could now make his move. I would have thought knight d2, to be honest. I would have thought, though, that you could be fairly sure that Ding has found rook g8 after knight d2, because if White plays, let me just refresh there. If White plays knight d2, if Black doesn't go rook g8 and g5, then I don't really know what he is doing. I mean, knight h7 is possible in g5, but that wouldn't be a dream, put it that way. And nothing else really does seem to do the trick, really. So yeah, I mean, I think we can assume that he's gotten. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the question, really. Whether you think that that position after rook g8 is worth playing for white. I think it is kind of, or whether you want to sharpen stuff up with rook c1, which is also very interesting. Not vaguely interested actually as to so I mean we're talking after rook c1, bishop b3, knight d2, takes. Leela's saying e3. No, I'd sort of suggested e4 here, possibly b5 and g5, but okay, lots of possibilities. Leela didn't seem to want to play b5 immediately, and I'm sort of wondering. Sort of wondering why. Because it kind of makes sense. I mean, I can play stuff like I can play stuff like I'm just looking at what Jason said. What about rook g3? Let me have a look. d2. I'm wondering what line you're looking at. Maybe after knight e4. You're talking about takes. Bishop b4. E takes d4. No, I don't. No, I'm sorry. I don't follow which line you're saying, Jason. I'm afraid. So b5. So maybe I go bishop g2, rook c8, and now d5. Maybe that's possible. Not 100% sure. I've got stuff like knight c5 into d3 there somehow. Oh, from current position. Current position with the knight bd7 already. Sorry, Jason, not quite following it there. Unless something else has happened. No, Gukesh is still thinking. Well, I am a bit mystified, I have to say. Why on earth is Gukesh thinking? 7 minutes already. That's a long time. Long time to think, 7 minutes. I mean, really, you should have, should have been ready for this move, really, I think. And I don't know whether I was always as good, for time usage as that somehow, but I would have expected, to play the next move quite quickly somehow, might signify that this is more or less where his knowledge ends somehow, and he's just got a range of promising possibilities, and he just needs to decide on them. I suspect that that shows it. In a way, slightly surprising because, I wouldn't have thought this would be too unexpected as a choice from Ding, and I mean, h5, knight b7 must have been one of the main lines you would have thought. But yeah, I mean, these guys have got so much preparation. So much preparation. Oh, he wants rook g3 now. Okay, sorry. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, sorry, Jason. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. What would we do then after rook g3? A little bit worried about rook h1 all the time. That's what's sort of worrying me a little bit. Whether I'm going to get caught out with that. Maybe rook h1 might be yeah, might be a little bit annoying somehow. Hard to get free somehow. Yeah, I'd be coming down as Ding as well. Actually, it's I don't know. Feel that Gukesh might have tried to bluff it a little bit, really, yeah, and just make sure he plays his next move fast as well, and just see whether what Ding comes up with. Certainly, the move knight d2 is a nice one, right? Because rook c1, you force Ding into something, whereas knight d2, Ding has to find one more good move, basically, which is well, actually two more good moves, right? Rook c1, or not rook c1, bishop e3, g5, rook c1, bishop e4. So that's two or three good moves somehow that Ding has to find. So would have thought it would have been worth bluffing there somehow. Have this feeling that that Gukesh isn't quite yet firing on all cylinders yet. I think I think he's sort of missing a few practical tricks here, but okay, I mean, still he's playing fine, but I think he's not quite into the practical, giving himself the best chances all over the board somehow, Let's have a look. I was looking at this line, wasn't I? I was trying to work out why b5 immediately wasn't what Leela wanted. Not really sure, to be honest. I mean, I can go bishop g2, rook c8. Maybe I could go g5, I suppose. I think everyone should use the engine. You can use it in different ways, and yeah, I mean, I do. I always compare it to. It's sometimes a little tricky. Obviously, I'm 2600 around, so I mean it's probably the use of the engine is somewhat different. But I always look back on it with when I was a shogi player. And I got to about online, at least, where most of shogi is played. I got to 2 dan, which is about probably 1900 or something like that for 2000 for chess strength equivalent. And I really found an engine to point out all the tactical mistakes I've made, and there were many. I found that unbelievably useful, because I would have just been completely oblivious, for the rest of my life. So that was really very, very useful. However, what I did find was that anything that the engine was telling me about general plans. I mean, shogi's a lot more tactical than chess. So. But I found that very hard to grasp. I found that very, very difficult. And from that point of view, analyzing, games by myself was actually kind of useful, or at least, writing down my thoughts during the game, trying to make them concrete, what I actually thought during the game. And sometimes, you say, oh, I really was thinking about doing this. And then you try it with the engine can tell you whether there's a tactical mistake or not. But I mean, so from that point of view, I'd say that, certainly when you're at that level, analyzing games with an engine to pick out the tactical mistakes is really useful. And yeah, I mean, there's lots of things I describe in Silicon Road to Chess Improvement about how you can use engines in all sorts of ways. And I think that a lot of those techniques are really, really useful, like playing out games from rook g8 played, knight d2 played, and rook g8 played. Great. Wow. Okay, so Ding's done really well. Ding's done really, really well there, hasn't he? Just needs to find a couple more good moves, and he's I guess he's dealt with the first exam. The next one is still to come, right? But yeah, this is quite. He's navigated his way through these tactics quite nicely, looks like. So yeah, rook c1, bishop e3, interchangeable, really. Bishop e3 is a nice, feels a little bit more trappy somehow. really forcing black to find the move g5 after rook c1. Yeah, g5 is totally obvious because because you've got nothing else to do basically. But this could be very interesting. Yeah, maybe rook c1 is the more human move somehow, I think. But bishop e3 you'd only play if you had this prepared, I think, with Leela. But so okay, yeah. So we're just expecting rook c1 here, and then this very subtle move bishop e4 because yeah, bishop h7, knight f3 looks pretty decent. Looks like he's winning a pawn for white rather, and so bishop e4 has to be played so that if f3, the bishop goes back to h7 and you don't get knight f3 anymore. But okay, yeah, I mean, what Leela is saying is knight takes e4. Actually, what is Leela saying here? Yeah, quite interesting actually. Knight takes e4 because I'm sort of, could you not play knight takes e4 and somehow do something against that e4 pawn? I mean, it's quite natural to do that when you've got a pawn on g4 stopping f5 somehow, you know. I mean, I'd be, yeah. The problem is the bishop. Yeah, you bishop g2, knight f6 is actually kind of safe-ish for black, but sort of wondering a little bit about doing this somehow, you know, and but maybe, yeah, you're more tied to the g4 pawn now than black is to the g5 pawn, since the bishop's no longer attacking it. So maybe, you know, black can take the h file and deal with you there. But I wouldn't be 100% confident that I'm fine there as black. But yeah, you can't do much about it, right? But that would be quite interesting. But what Leela wants is to go f3. And then knight takes c3, which, you know, in general terms is also a little bit strange from a human point of view. My natural move for black would be to play knight d6 here, you know, and just yeah, keep control of the f5 square. d6 very natural square for the knight in these structures, and yeah, and then leave white with those weakish pawns somehow. But I'm not sure what Leela would think about that. I mean, you do have a move just like bishop f2 simply, and e4 is coming. Maybe it's just, maybe this knight just ends up getting awkward somehow. It's possible. I mean, the big annoyance is that you can't go castles because of knight takes d5, so it's kind of hard to get your pieces properly sorted somehow. I don't know whether you could go with a knight f6 would be decent, or you try and stop e4, also preparing castles there. I don't know. This is probably quite nice for white somehow. So it's a very, yeah, actually it's a very concrete plan from black, you know, then looking to create some counterplay there. But now I like I like Gukesh's position a lot. Yeah, Gukesh thought for 12 minutes about knight d2, and now he's thinking again after rook g8. I'm wondering about this. It does make you wonder whether he really is out of his preparation now, I think, yeah. He really is. And maybe he doesn't actually have anything else in his head about this position. It's possible. So because it's a bit strange to play knight d2 when rook g8 is virtually forced, right? And then not have something prepared against the other moves. I'm finding this a little bit strange, you know. But or maybe he missed rook g8 a little. I don't know. Strange. It's strange because it's looking pretty much forced now, really. So yeah. I would have expected Gukesh to play. I'd expected Gukesh to play moves 14 and 15 in about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that, if you're just taking your time and settling yourself. But yeah, somehow spending a lot of time. Still got a big time advantage, but yeah, it's you always end up needing it somehow. I mean, probably not in this position, right? Yeah. Yeah, no, this should be very nice for Gukesh. I'm just a bit surprised he's spending all this time somehow, but it does depend, though. I mean, sometimes it's just good just to spend a little bit of time. You say, well, I've got plenty of time on the clock. Let me just settle in, think properly about the position, think what I want to do, and then I'll be in a better frame of mind afterwards for playing. I mean, I guess what I'm just trying to think of other possibilities. I guess that you might consider playing something like rook c1, g5, and bishop g3, maybe. I suppose you could consider that. The idea being that you play f3, you're just trying to keep your bishop on this active diagonal and stop a dark squared bishop from getting to d6. That is possible. That is possible. But that feels, yeah, I'm pretty sure that if I spotted this idea of bishop e3, bishop h7, knight f3, I would be putting the bishop on e3. I'm pretty sure if I spotted that because sort of calculating. Nah, Joe, I think I do like white somehow. Yeah. But I think when you're calculating, obviously you can't see everything, so you're often sort of gathering pieces of evidence in a position in order to convince yourself about there's little bits that are in my favor, tricky little things. Normally in a good position, I've got tricky little things like that. I can see tricky things, so it must be a good position. You sort of convince yourself a little bit like that, and that would be very much something that I'd think, sort of, bishop e3, bishop h7, knight f3 wins a pawn. Oh, yeah, that's nice, so I can do that. In all fairness, I've just noticed it doesn't actually win a pawn. We could go bishop h6. But that does look absolutely disgusting, I have to say. Well, one f5 is never really good against anything, really. I think even gambits might be quite dangerous. 2e4, and then d3 afterwards. Even that might be quite dangerous. It's bishop h6 is interesting. There we are. That might be why Gukesh might be thinking. He's sort of thinking, would it be possible? I'm not sure actually. I'm looking at going rook h1 in this position. Actually, that's the reason I've paused. With the idea of knight g4, I want to go bishop h3, and if knight e3, I take on here and I go rook h6. That's the idea. Which is quite sneaky. But it could be after bishop h3 that you're going knight f6. This looks horrible, doesn't it? This looks absolutely awful. You can't be serious. I mean, I could go something like knight e5, maybe. Oh, knight e3. No. Well, I could do the same, couldn't I? Takes and knight e5 here. And if knight e5, I go rook h6. Now, this can't be, bishop h6 can't be decent. I mean, the only thing that you could maybe do, I mean, is put the bishop back on f8. No, but I mean, I just take on g5. No, bishop h6 is impossible. I mean, that's completely fine. No, Joe, I'd rather. I think that White's doing quite nicely. Black's going to find a way to get his bishop a bit out of trouble, but he's going to lose something along the way, I think. So I would, if I got this in my preparation, basically, then I would, as White, I would be really, really happy. Really just say, yeah, I've done a good job. Done a good job. Well done, team. this is what we want. But I don't understand. Oh, I'm finding it hard to understand the clock usage somehow. But I think probably maybe Gukesh is getting is unsure just yeah how good everything is somehow. Maybe I don't know. But it just all looks really good. That's the thing, right? Especially now he's. I mean, I can understand agonising over rook c1 and knight d2. You know, sort of thinking, oh, which one do I want to do? But this is really. This just looks really obvious somehow, right? Obviously nice. Um, unless he's, you know, he's got something concrete that he's spotted against this line. Because I can't imagine really that that you sort of say, "Oh, I'm not sure about bishop e4," you know, because you take on here and you know you're kind of maybe d takes c4. Would he be unsure about this one? But you can definitely look at it anyway. The idea is you're sort of thinking about bishop b4 and knight b6, that sort of thing. And if bishop g2, then you've got knight takes g4. That's the idea. Okay, that might be something. Yeah, this looks a little bit more complicated somehow. But what you could do is bishop d2. Yeah, I think the multiple strong moves here, they're just transposing into each other. It's basically a transposition, that one. I think that maybe Gukesh is a bit wondering about this position. But I think I quite like the look of bishop d2. So the idea there is bishop b4, I've got knight takes c4. So a little discovered attack there. So what are you going to do with black? Castle queenside is possible. Knight b6 is maybe the most natural. And then you've got to decide what you're going to do. I've got a lot of possibilities though. I mean, I could go bishop g2 here. You know, because knight g4, bishop e4 is really nice for white there. And if castle queenside, which is the thing that seems vaguely possible, yeah, I don't know. I mean, even moves like e3. I mean, this pawn is really weak, and otherwise I could just, you know, maybe try knight takes c4, takes, rook d4. Oh, bishop h7. That's what we do. Rook g7. Oh no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Yeah, I was thinking that I'd cunningly forced you to get on the long diagonal, but there's bishop b4 in these positions. But okay, I mean, bishop h7, I go check, king somewhere, maybe rook h1. These ideas of rook h8. Chances for a nice edge here, I would have thought, you know. And that's not so difficult to calculate. Maybe, yeah, castles. And bishop g2 is just similar, right? But maybe you could say black can sort of hold stuff, maybe. I was actually wondering about playing the move f3 in this position with the idea of takes here. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is totally bananas. Yeah, I think Gukesh is having a hard time. I think he's having a hard time deciding between bishop e3 and bishop g3. That's what I think he's. I don't. Oh, he's gone g5. I vaguely wondered about it, but I thought he won't, surely. Wow. Wow. Yeah, Leela doesn't like that at all. And I mean, I certainly don't as well. I hate this simply. I wondered whether he might be thinking about it. I really did, but I just thought, nah, I can't mention it. I mean, you're not going to let the oops, sorry, you're not going to let the bishop come back to f5, right? I mean, you're not going to do that simply. You're never going to do that. Even if you think this might be good, you're not going to do that. But this is such an unbelievably concrete move Gukesh. Oh, I think Vladi Kramnik will have something to say about this move somehow. He was already criticizing the Gukesh in the first game. In actual fact, the Gukesh at some stage black took on d4, and I commented on this as well. But I was really expecting bishop takes d4. And that bishop on d4 would have kept everything together, defended the pawn on c3, and Gukesh took with a knight on d4, which was the Leela top move there. Absolutely, no worries about that. It was a good move. But Kramnik was saying, "Oh, I never would have considered knight d4, only would have considered bishop d4," which was kind of the same feeling that I had somehow. Here again, I couldn't imagine, I can imagine Vladi sort of saying, I would never consider a move like g5 simply. And I can imagine it, to be honest, because, yeah. Yeah, well, I bet. Oh God, it looks like Leela, because Leela was actually wanted bishop c7. It looks like Leela thinks black is a bit better now, in actual fact. Ooh, my goodness me! Wow, wow. Actually, what is Gukesh doing here? Actually, um, what is his idea? Because it's really weird, right? I mean, yeah, to put the bishop on h2 when you're maybe intending bishop h3 or something. I mean, I think what he's going for, in general, there, I guess, is some sort of big clamp concept. That's what I'm sort of thinking. And something like taking the knight on d7 and then sticking the bishop on e5 somehow. But oh God, when everything looked quite nice and slightly better somehow. It's a big thing to do this, really. It really is big. I mean, it's really such a responsible decision here. You got to admire it, right? I mean, I can't think who would play like this somehow of any other players somehow, but it's an amazing decision. It really is. But I guess he's finding maybe he's finding a lot of tricks somehow. I mean, I'm starting to see some tricks, when I've recovered from my shock somehow. It's I mean, I'm just trying to try and make some sensible moves and then do it. I mean, first of all, the thing that you notice is that black's pieces are getting in their way still a little bit. So you might you might think about bringing the bishop back f5 to e6, but you might also think about bringing the knight g7 to e6 or to f5 maybe. So those pieces are getting in each other's way. Wow, Ding playing rook h8. That was the Leela top move there. And that's, I think Ding's feeling the position somehow, yeah. I mean, I was sort of wondering, yeah. Must be said, I mean, I was thinking, did Gukesh have something really good planned if Black had tried to bring the bishop back, got cold feet and done that. But even this is not. I mean, this is so many weaknesses in your position, right, that you're creating. It is dangerous, but still, it's such a responsible decision that, because you could just be losing your entire position with too many weaknesses somehow, right? But yeah, Ding is not getting cold feet, right? He's just saying, okay, I'm pretty confident I can get my bishop out of there. So I'm just going to go back to the open H file. You've got your bishop on H2. I'm going to get some targets somehow. And well, as the arrow is indicating, it means having the rook on H8, hitting the bishop on H2. It's not the knight is now not restricted anymore just to coming back via G7, but it can also come via F6 with a discovered attack on the bishop. So, whoo. Yeah. So what I was thinking for, what maybe what Gukesh is going for, the concept would be the big clam, that you're going for bishop h3 takes d7, and then after bishop e5, try and do it that way, and just try and play against this knight, maybe play e3, f4, knight f3, something like that, and try and play against this knight, and maybe try and catch this bishop somehow as well, and maybe you've got some possibilities with some stuff on the queen side, but it just all looks too ambitious to me in some ways. It looks like the sort of plan I could think of, come up with after a long think, and then find that I just missed some key details somehow. But okay, I'm looking at Leela's second line, and I'm thinking, well, that might be something that Gukesh might have thought of, right? Maybe f3 now. But yeah, Leela wants knight g7 and now playing bishop g3. I can't believe you come up with this as a human player, to be honest. Not wasting that amount of time. I mean, this is real engine stuff, right? It's not something that you choose, but he's done it. He's played f3, Gukesh. He really is. People have, there were a few interviews before the match, and Magnus was saying that he didn't really understand the way that Gukesh played, and a few comments like that somehow, and well, maybe starting to feel that somehow a bit as well, right? That these are really such concrete, strange moves somehow, but yeah, but they're not bad at all, but they're really strange. They're really moves that would make me think, oh, I wouldn't dare do that ever. I might think about them. I've got a strange imagination sometimes, but I just wouldn't. I'd never dare do that somehow. And yet he seems to be doing this somehow. Yeah. So, but the idea that you'd give black this tempo on the bishop, amazing somehow. But yeah, I mean, there are threats, right? E4 is coming in there, and the bishop is still warriorable on C2. So to be honest, I would be thinking now of, yeah, of maybe playing bishop E6. That would not be so stupid. Playing the bishop back to E6. And Leela thinks that this is actually quite decent. Bishop F5, E4, bishop E6. And after takes, important to take with the bishop on d5. If you go c takes d5, then knight b5 is very awkward with knight c7. But we could take like this. But okay, yeah. Complicated position. Oh, but yeah, so many weaknesses. It could all go so horribly wrong. Yeah? If Ding wins this, do you think the match is done? Oh, that'll be a real toughie. I mean, yeah, we still got to see, Ding's nerves hold up, but that would be a real toughie to be 2 down against Ding, especially the way that Ding seems to approach the second game somehow. Seems to be nicely programmed to play very, very quietly and solidly somehow. So, yeah. Oh, glad you like the Leela website, Rustic Tutor. It's brand new for the World Championship, so not surprised you didn't know about it. But yeah. I mean, what I do find about Gukesh's play somehow is that he's really taking on a lot of weaknesses. He's taking on a lot of responsibility. So far with his one white game, Ding's been a lot more, staying within his limits somehow, which I think might be the experience of playing a World Championship match. And so yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily bad what Gukesh is doing, but when you're looking at the amount of energy that he will need in order to keep on playing this position throughout, that is pretty high somehow, yeah. And then you sort of feel that what he's going for somehow is he's trying to sort of, he feels that he can exhaust Ding somehow, that he can give him so many difficult, concrete, unexpected problems to solve in every single type of position. The Ding will eventually collapse somehow. And yeah, who knows? That might be decent somehow. That might be a decent thing here, but yeah, it might be a strategy, but I don't know. I sort of feels that that Ding is doing quite nicely here. I mean, what I'm looking at the Leela line, I'm thinking this is actually quite human, natural, right? You're just gaining a couple of tempi along the way. If e4, you can go bishop takes g5, and you'll have bishop takes d2 and bishop b3 to get your bishop out. So you don't need to worry about it yet. And after bishop f2, you bring the bishop back, and after e4, you play bishop e6, and yeah, I think you've just got a very normal Queen's Gambit decline position, which you'd be delighted to get as black. You know, the knight comes to b6, and I've had these I've had these enough. Leela suggests f3 with enough contempt. I think you need loads of contempt for that. Um, without g5 maybe, that I could imagine. But yeah, I remember I had a game against Conor Murphy in the 4NCL in this sort of structure, and it went. I played. I had a nice opening concept, and I got it, and actually got a very good position, but then missed my way a little bit, and we ended up in a situation where basically black had got to his solid Queen's Gambit declined structure, and I'd taken on some weaknesses, and then I hadn't managed to make the most of them, and my game just went backwards somehow, and I couldn't. I was trying really hard. I wasn't in bad form, but yeah, and in principle, I rate my opponent by a couple of 100 points, but I was going backwards. I was really struggling, really worried about losing, and I mean, it wouldn't have been a shock if I'd lost that game. As it was, just around the time control, things took a crazy twist in a way I hadn't anticipated either, and I ended up actually managing to win the game. Very interesting end game, but yeah, it could easily have been a loss, and I just have that feeling of these are the sort of positions that can just go backwards with white, because I don't think you've got anything more to achieve now with white, and black's got lots of consolidating moves to play. So I am actually seriously worried about Gukesh in this game. If he doesn't, if Ding finds the next few nice moves to consolidate himself, then I think that the Gukesh could end up in a whole load of trouble here. I really do. Oh, also what Leela Nighthawks would have chosen to play. Oh, good old Leela Nighthawks. Oh, I was watching a great game this morning. I've noted it down to do a video on it. Oh, the tactics Leela found. My goodness me. Opponent was playing really well as well. Quite a decent time control, so enough time to think, and was playing really well. And but Leela just tactics that Leela found were just incredible. I was getting completely confused as well. Yeah, this is a crucial moment somehow, and yeah, Ding's thinking properly, which is good. I think if Ding finds this plan of knight g7, bishop e7, then he's really good. Yes, yeah, no, I've seen so many. I'm going to play a match against Leela at various odds, I guess, but I'm a bit worried about all of them, to be honest. Hey, Naphtha, I'm really worried about all of those Leela odds thingies because, yeah, I mean, to be honest, maybe that'll improve when I start playing a few matches actually. But the thing that I'm most worried about for my own play is that I haven't played a proper game of chess in 4 years now. Looked at a lot of chess, of course. So I'm completely in the chess flow, but haven't really been used anymore to finishing off games. And the thing that you notice the most about Leela is that any position, Leela is just finding such an amazing number of tricks and all that, that I'm a little bit worried about my ability to finish pretty much any position against Leela. That's well, that could be a little bit scary somehow, but we'll see. I was watching a guy play 1 minute bullet against Leela with queen odds, and he's 2700 plus bullet player, so very strong player, and playing unbelievably fast as well. It was, but he got hammered, something like 65-1 or something. And it was just, you just saw it all the time. He was making a great start, but then somehow the tactics started coming, and then he was getting rook forked at the end, and then running out of time. It's, I mean, that's too fast a time control, and but it's queen odds after all, and against really good bullet players. Doing all the pre-move stuff and everything as well. So yeah, really, really impressive somehow. Oh wow, Leela peace odds on Lichess. Even more options. Wow, that is great, Naptha. Really, really great. Oh, I'll give that some publicity as well. That's super. My goodness me, Queen Rook Rook. Oh my goodness me, Queen Rook Rook. Now, yeah, I think that everyone. Oh, 2100, 2200-ish. Yeah, I would start with queen odds, with give yourself enough time. And then if that feels comfortable, and that it's not clear it will do, but if that does, then queen for knight is a nice next step up somehow. I think that moving up to, and with the peace odds, you can do it nicely somehow. You can also try that. But I think queen and then moving to queen for knight is a pretty good one. Queen for knight looks pretty scary, I have to say. Don't ask me how that can be scary, but it is scary. So yeah, rook odds is really tough. I'm not that confident myself against rook odds, to be honest. Or it's going to need some serious thinking to get anywhere against rook odds. I think. I thought rook odds looked very impressive, and knight odds even more, of course. But I would say start at queen odds and then just give yourself plenty of time. See whether you can do something like a 4-game series, and whether you feel I'm really on top. I'm really doing that, and then afterwards you can just tweak it nicely. You can go to queen for knight, or you can give yourself a bit less time and see whether you can still find those good sensible ways to win and avoid the tactics. You can put up a whole training regime with it. I'm going to do some videos as well on that, about doing a training regime with Leela odds. So hopefully that'll help as well. But what great news! That's really, really good. Brilliant. God, I'm glad I bought a second huge screen somehow, because I've got all the Leela odds pages open all the time. I'm watching all the games. It's why I get so many games just without even mining the databases, just in terms of what I see. So yeah, really going to need to spread them all across if we've got piece things. Yeah, and the Leela Night odds is really, really strong. Yeah, yeah, that is. I mean, the fact that Leela's playing instantly is also quite tough. I think because you always think, okay, I found this move, and then Leela's just playing instantly, and it's a tough psychological thing to deal with, I have to say. So there's a lot to get used to, but I think it's really. I mean, in general terms, I think it's a wonderful training in terms of dealing with an aggressively inclined player who both plays fast and plays active. So it's And I think, looking at the typical mistakes that people are making in all these games, and I've seen hundreds of them now. Well, I think that that the average human player, and by average I'm including myself in that as well, has masses to learn in terms of dynamism, assessing compensation, finishing off games, playing well. I think there's so much that we can learn, because you see so many typical mistakes coming back and back all the time. So yeah, I think it's really, really very important. So Ding is taking a long time here, 13 minutes. I think it's good. He's getting a little low on time, 35. But I do think that he finds a couple of good moves, this top Leela line, basically, which I really love. A couple of good developing moves, just gaining tempi on White. I mean, then White's played Bishop H2 to G3 to F2 in 4 or 5 moves. It's terrible, really. And then play this Bishop F5 and Bishop E6. Once you've done that, you are just never going to lose. I can't see a single way to lose this. Not even against Leela Knight odds. Well, maybe against Leela Knight odds, but it's really hard to see, how you're ever going to lose this. You put the knight on B6, you put the king on D7, you play A6. I mean, you can move your rook up and down the H file. I mean, it's gorgeous, simply gorgeous. I'd be wondering whether my opponent was interested in a draw somehow already here. It's really, yeah, very difficult to play, I think. I'm just wondering what, yeah. I mean, I think the only thing that could be slightly different is that Ding might be very tempted to keep this longer on the H file, and think, well, maybe I could. I mean, I've got this knight; it might be able to come into F4. I've got this bishop on there. I feel like doing a little bit more somehow. I feel like keeping that there for a while. But I mean, he needs to do something about this bishop somehow. So. And this doesn't look as tempting somehow, because c takes d5. I've got knight b5, which is really annoying with the threat of knight c7. So I have to take back with the bishop, and after a move like bishop c4, this does not feel half as nice as the other one, basically. So I would have thought that when you're thinking about it calmly, if you see that you can just play a few moves and develop with tempo, then I would have thought that you'd always take this one, basically. And I'm trying to think, what obviously, you look at it with the engine, everything feels bishop, bishop, knight, knight. Oh, that's a lot of that. That must be so. I would have thought that would be quite tricky for Leela. Yeah, 5% advantage expected score after ELO and time control adjustment. Yeah, no, but this is really nice. This is really. I'd be giving black towards a clear advantage. Would be my my feeling on this, because it's one of those positions which I think is only going to get worse for White unless he plays really amazingly, and whereas if he just plays normally, then Black's still got quite a bit of improvement to make in the position. So yeah. I'm just trying to think, whether there's something that could be putting Ding off, about playing knight g7 and bishop e7, two in principle very natural moves. I'm just wondering whether there's something that you don't see when you're looking at it with an engine, but that might be putting him off. But I don't think so. I mean, bishop c7, I go knight e6. That's not scary. You can only want to play bishop g3, right? I mean, bishop f4, you'll get hit by knight e6, so there's no reason you'd be scared about that. And after bishop e7, yeah, I mean, I just don't see how you can be scared of that at all, because after e4, I've got bishop g5, and I'm threatening bishop d2 and bishop b3. So I guess the only thing that might worry me would be, would I be worried about e4 and then about this resulting position? Takes bishop b3. Would I be worried that this is maybe a little sharp? Could be, but Yeah, I mean, c takes d5, knight b5, or maybe you're worried about bishop d5, takes, and rook c7, something like that. Possible, possible. Knight g7 played. Oh God, do you think a draw? Knight h5? No, if knight h5, I think, well, that would be a really manufactured draw, knight h5. Because, I mean, white would normally play bishop f2, right? Tell me, Leela. Oh, rook h1, Leela wants. Nah, I don't think knight h5 is going to happen. I don't think knight h5 is going to. I think bishop e7 is going to happen there. I don't think knight e6 is going to happen because then the bishop on c2 won't get out. I'm pretty sure that Ding is going to keep the bishop in line. I'm pretty sure he's going to play bishop e7. To be honest, I think so. Feels so natural to develop like that. I can't imagine he'd. I can't imagine another move really, unless he's got some clever tactic somewhere. But I can't really see why. I think it's either, bishop f5, which I don't think that's natural, or it's bishop e7. If you see bishop e7 and, come on, Ding spent 17 minutes already. It's strange to be spending a bit more time there, but indeed, the only reason I think you'd think in this position after spending 17 minutes is if you think, oh, I'm going to play knight h5 and offer a draw. That would be, but I think that would be really bad psychologically. I think that would be really, really bad. Because it's not even a very good move, I don't think. So, interesting question, of course, is whether Gukesh would take it. That would be another interesting thing. Yeah, Ding's down to 30 minutes. I mean, that's not good. But I do think that if he plays this line here, then he is really so safe with black. And I think white's got so little to do, really. I think that would be a wonderful. I think anyone would be totally pretty sure that they're not going to lose this position as black. So, but you might be right, yeah. I mean, to be honest, if they go knight h5, bishop h2, then well, then I can only go until 11:30, unfortunately. So on this stream, but that would be a perfect ending. Then really making bite-sized chunks to to fit into my streaming capability. But it's yeah, still. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it, but now that you've said it, I'm getting scared. So it's yeah, but knight h5 is a really ropey move, right? I mean, even just bishop f2, right, would be, quite sensible. But yeah, Leela wants rook h1. Let's have a look at it anyway. Knight h5. Rook h1, bishop e7, e4, bishop g5. Oh yeah, yeah. This is very similar line. Only, the one thing is that you're pinned there, which is castles, bishop d6, knight b6, bishop e5. Oh, looking to sacrifice there. Oh, this looks. Oh, that's a nice move. Probably black should make a draw there, but I don't think. Yeah, this move rook h1 is rather nasty. But would Gukesh play rook h1? Interesting. It's not exactly obvious. Yeah, rook h5. Wow. Really? No, he won't have done it. He won't have done it, right? No. He's played knight h5, hasn't he? I can't believe he's played rook h5, surely. I can't believe he's played that move. Has he really played rook h5? Wow, I mean, yeah, this has changed everything somehow, but Well, this is getting random, right? Um, this is getting really random. Yeah, I mean, in principle, it's not a very good move somehow. Has he really played Rook H5? I find it hard to believe. It's such a strange move. Yeah, yeah. I mean, such a strange move that. Yeah, I mean, the key thing is, yeah, but maybe he wants tactics, right? Video shows Rook H5. Okay, thanks, Adam. I guess he's just looking for tactics, yeah, which is E4. But yeah, will you have calculated these sort of lines that Leela's looking at? I mean, I can't believe it, right? I mean, after E4, you're just threatening Rook C1, so you've got to have something prepared. And would he really have prepared Knight E6? Because there's a couple of things, right? I mean, it's not only Rook C1 is what Leela wants. There's also Bishop F2 as well, just defending the pawn and going Rook C1. Maybe it transposes, I guess it does. Rook C1, Knight D4, Bishop F2, Bishop G7. So yeah, it's not a stupid idea, right? I mean, you do see these things where you give up a piece like this and just leave white with a fractured pawn structure and all of that. But still, I mean, why would you do this simply? It's yeah, I mean, yeah, this is what Leela's giving, which is 2 pawns for the piece. I mean, Leela Odds playing these positions, without and winning all of them, right? But it's yeah, still, it's. I mean, surely Ding has missed something somehow, yeah. Surely Ding has missed something obvious, maybe, or was he? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he must be planning. I think. I think what Ding is doing, he wants tactics. I think that's clear as black. I think he wants there to be tactics. I don't think he needed it simply. I think he played beautifully. He'd done all the tactics he needed to, and he could have just switched over to solid mode. But that's a mental thing somehow. Maybe he's thinking, well, let's just keep on making it tricky, keep on um, posing tactical problems, and but yeah, it's a risky thing with 27 minutes left, and yeah, but maybe he feels that Gukesh is struggling somehow. Yeah, I mean that's possible. But I think there's only really one move here, which is E4. Um, I don't think there's any other move that you can play. I mean, either nothing makes sense anymore, or you play it. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think what would Gukesh have thought? Would he have thought of knight e6, or did he have some other way that he was thinking of for doing this? Let's have a look. E4. I mean, I could. I mean, I can play Rook G5, I guess. Rook C1, and then I'm looking to see, can I? Is there some plausible way that I could give up an exchange or something? But it's really hard to see. Yeah, I mean. Something like this, I just retreat, right? Something like this. the most you're getting is 2 pawns to the piece. Now, understand there, these pawns are not great, so there'll definitely be a lot of compensate. It won't be an easy put away. Put it that way. Oh, we've seen enough Leela odds games where Leela holds these things. Enough engine games at the TCC where a piece is not enough somehow. But I mean, why would you choose to go in for that? That just feels really weird. So I'm kind of more trying to think of, what looks like it could work and what has some sort of subtle or obvious refutation somehow. Because I sort of feel that must really be it. Because this is, if you look at knight 96, this is completely linear, right? And then knight takes d4, bishop f2. So is he thinking that he can do something? He can do something clever somehow. Is he thinking about knight takes f3, for example, takes and bishop e4? Because after all, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3 pawns to the piece to start with. That could be it. That could be it. Bishop d3, Viren. Bishop c5, rook g2, bishop d3. Aren't I just taking it somehow, or? Or are you going knight e5 or something, Viren? Wow. But it could be, right? I mean, yeah, maybe bishop c5 is possible. I don't know. Yeah, the possibilities are quite extreme. I mean, the thing is, you are going to lose a piece, I think. But I mean, it wouldn't be so crazy, right? Maybe to take like this and then just claim. Yeah, I guess that white should be better here because you've got the 2 bishops. That's what really upsets me about doing it in this way, is that white's got the 2 bishops, and I would expect somehow that that having the 2 bishops would be possible, but you might have some knight e5s. It's pretty creative. I mean, no, knight d2, bishop b4. I'd have rook c4, wouldn't I? And then rook e4. I do have the sneaking suspicion that Ding might have missed something that he might have thought, and I've got something good against that, and it's not quite as good. But okay, I mean, let's keep on going with stuff. Bishop g7 or bishop c5? That was Viren's line, right? I always took material, Jadra. Always took material. Yeah, what I'm thinking is takes, and rook g2 like that. That's already feeling, yeah, it's not, it's already feeling, I guess, not lost, because you haven't got the bishop pair to fight against. So, yeah. But the question is, yeah, how do you want to make a mess with black of white's position? He may well do, yeah, yeah. But yeah, on the positive side, he does have the time. So, I mean, would Ding maybe be thinking about d takes c4, and if rook c2, then e3, something like that? Follow up with knight e5 later. I mean, I could also just take there, of course. But I mean, you could sort of claim knight e5 and castles and say, okay, I've got compensation. I mean, this is such a Leela odds position, you know. Yeah, no, it's not going to be easy for Gukesh. It's an amazing move. Pardon me. Rook h5, because Black really had a nice, safe way of playing. Where you sort of say there's no risk at all. But I think maybe obviously Rook h5 um, is kind of way too risky. But maybe it's just the way that Ding is sort of playing. Right? He's going for his tactics, and he's going for imbalance, and he's decided to trust himself on that. You know, it's an amazing move. It really is an amazing move. It's but I think it's going to be one of those things indeed where you end up somewhere with maybe a couple of pawns and a bad pawn structure for white. It could be. It could be. I mean, maybe this is all part of the master plan to run Gukesh into time trouble. But it's just that Ding has made such a good job of running himself into time trouble. I mean, 27 minutes. He's making it complicated, and it's 27 minutes. But yeah, I don't know if he feels that he's understanding the position well. Then yeah, I think indeed it's Leela wants Bishop G7 there, and Bishop E3. Yeah, I mean this is the kind of the structure thing, right? Yeah, I mean we saw something just similar like this, and you've just got these dark squares and two pawns. I mean this you do see Stockfish drawing these, don't you? You do see Stockfish drawing these, so it's 11 minutes. That was played pretty fast. That's quite good. So now I think we really need Ding to oh god, I'm going to be leaving the game soon. My goodness, just when it's getting exciting. But yeah. Yeah, I mean Leela's going for something similar, but through Bishop C5. But I think this is the sort of thing Leela's expecting. Two pawns and a bit of structure, basically, and White not having the two bishops. That must be. You think she's missing some tactics? Oh dear, you are evil, Viren. Stockfish is seeing some crazy stuff. Okay, that's wow. Let me have a look. Did I had Stockfish somewhere, didn't I? Yeah, Rook G2, Bishop D3 was what is what. This is the line of that Viren was talking about. Wow, I can't imagine that Ding would have seen this sort of stuff, right? I can't imagine that Ding would have seen the lines that Sese is currently seeing. Just let me just put Sese in the chat, just so people know what I'm talking about. But that is quite crazy. But yeah, I don't think that Ding would have seen that necessarily. But I think the Leela line is maybe something vaguely likely. Maybe, yeah, maybe you just sort of say, well, something like that is bound to be okay. Yeah, yeah, no, he definitely saw E4. He's definitely thought about sacking a piece for two or possibly three pawns and being happy with the result. But yeah, I mean we see engines do this all the time, right? But it's for a human player. This is quite extraordinary. I have to say, it's really something where you sort of say, oh, I don't. I'm just trying to think, what could you? I mean, what you could calculate this sort of thing somehow, not Rook G2, I think, but more likely Bishop D4, Rook G2. And then somehow you're sacking something somewhere, and this pawn is weak, and I could imagine you could say, oh, that's probably not that bad for me, but to choose that above the lines the safe lines we were looking at, I mean, wow. you know Yes, a strange one, taking some time after e4. I'd expect that this would really be the moment where you sort of say, I have complete understanding of what I'm doing. Here we are, e4. I played knight e6 for Ding to be thinking again, but yeah, it's difficult, the position, right? So he's probably he's having doubts. Okay. Yes, there's something. Yes, this is not looking good. This there's he wants a similar line, right? Knight e6, but the point is, before the pawns are exchanged, he always had knight takes f3 tricks, and now he doesn't anymore. So this is going to be less good. But I think he's really going for the structure. I think what he's looking for is he's looking to get 2 pawns for the piece, and just have a white structure that will be very difficult to win with a nice knight on e5. So that's what he's going for. So let's have a look. What could Leela? The thing that's a bit worrying there is that Leela's saying knight a4, which does look a little bit worrying. But yeah, that wouldn't be so bad. I mean, something like this, for example, even, you know, and you sort of say, well, 2 pawns to the piece, but yeah, this guy's very, very weak. He'll probably get swapped off, and then I'll, 3 against 2 double pawns. I'm fine. I'm fine here somehow. I mean, we see this at the TCC all the time somehow. So I think this was more intuitive than really calculated from Ding. I think he hasn't maybe calculated this thoroughly somehow. But for example, I mean, if we went rook c1, knight here, bishop f2, we just went bishop g7 here. What is wrong with that, really? I mean, if I take, I go rook g2. And then I should probably really take a pawn, shouldn't I? What if I just took and went bishop e3, for example? Something like this. Doesn't look so bad for black, does it, really? Yeah, it's a weird decision to take when you got, but yeah, I think it's just he's in that mood somehow, yeah? I think he's in that mood. Maybe this is maybe in this position we could go rook g2 somehow. Maybe this is the big difference that this move bishop d3 will achieve nothing because f3 isn't hanging. Could be. But okay, maybe we just go takes, bishop d4 here, and then yeah, bishop e3 again. Yeah, okay. Not so bad. Not so bad. Possible decision. Bit crazy somehow, yeah. Bit crazy, but it's looking kind of more possible the more you look at it somehow. I just, yeah, I don't like that d4 move somehow because, there was a pawn on f3 that you were always attacking with all your knights, so that felt quite good. And yeah, now there's white's a lot freer somehow. I mean, he might even have some rook g3s somewhere, which he didn't have before. So, but I think black's going to reach a position that's going to be very hard for white to win. As long as he just gets it just right, he manages to get a couple of pawns for the piece and exchange off one of white's bishops, preferably the dark squared bishop, so that it's so that white doesn't have the 2 bishops. I think that's going to be a decent position to. Oh, anything is enough. Anything is enough, really, in the human game. Anything can happen. 0.9 is a lot somehow, but still, yeah, no, anything can happen. What's Leela saying? Rook c1. Knight d4, bishop f2, bishop c5, and now knight a4 from Leela. Yeah, I mean, before against moves like that, we could have gone knight takes f3, and then knight takes f3, and yeah, knight e6 played. Could have gone knight takes f3 check and bishop e4, you know, in these sort of lines. But yeah, you don't have it. That's why it would have been preferable, really, to leave the pawn on f3 if you could. But difficult decisions, those there. Difficult decisions for 1.36 for Sessi. Oh my goodness. Wow, dramatic. I am afraid that I've got to leave you there. I have now got to do something else. So I'm very, very sorry about that. I wish that I could carry on. But thank you very much, everyone, for joining the stream and looking at Leela's stuff together with me. I hope you you enjoy it and enjoy the rest of the game. Do take a look at all the excellent commentators. I hear that Levon Aronian is on at Lichess, which would be quite something. I think Levon must be fantastic. So do take a look at that. And do keep on looking at live.lc0.org, you know, so that would be absolutely great. But thanks very much for watching. And yeah, hope to see you at the next stream. I think I'll probably do a similar stream on Friday. And then hopefully on Saturday, I'll be back on the Lichess main stream as well. So keep tuned, keep watching, and thanks very much, everyone.